Hey guys, welcome to another class review video, and today I'll be making a review on every warrior class in MapleStory. Yes, by popular demand, I'll be making a class review on every class type. Initially, I was only going to review the thieves since I know thieves the most, but it sounds like you guys would rather hear the sound of my voice more than the accuracy of my words, yeah? So if I were to tell you guys that Mikhail is actually the strongest warrior in the game, you would believe me, right? Well, actually, I don't know, maybe they are. Anyway. Up until I made this video, I never actually noticed how many warriors there are in Maple. They're like 12, most out of any class in the game. So yeah, that's a lot more than like the 6 or 7 thieves that I talked about. So I'm going to keep each class to a much smaller, like 30 seconds to 1 minute talk, because then we'd be here for half an hour. Hope you guys don't mind. That being said, I know warrior mains are some of the most fervent players for their classes, so I have a feeling I'm going to be triggering a ton of people. Like the reviewing thieves video, this is not meant to be a tier list on who is the best, who is the worst, yada yada yada. Just meant to be my opinions on each class while throwing in some objectivity into the mix and to sort of give you an idea of how each warrior is doing right now. Who's been doing well, who isn't. Spoiler alert, almost every warrior is incredibly strong, so expect a lot of praise. Nexon's got a bias towards these guys, I swear. Start off with the good old hero. Of the trio Explorer warriors, heroes are all about damage, being noticeably more squishy than the other two but having one of the highest damage output of any class in the game. What I find both amazing and tragic about heroes is that they're almost always the first class to reach the damage cap before any other, but that also means they're the first to fall off when the damage cap does become easily achievable. However, when Fit Job came out, heroes received some of the best skills I've ever seen. They were amazing for their damage, they had no problem with that, but they kinda sucked everywhere else. Bad mobbing, lack of lines, but their Fit Job skills changed most of that, giving them great wave clear and crazy burst damage. If you're looking for a warrior that just does insane damage, you can't go wrong with the hero. Although, in my personal opinion, their enjoyment leaves much to be desired since they're a very one-button-only type class. I found them quite boring after long periods of time, but that's just me. At least compared to the other warriors, heroes are just a very simple and linear playstyle. Paladin comes next. I haven't seen many Paladin mains around in GMS as of late. In fact, the only time I see them is when people switch to Palis just for the sake of their mobbing, being a tad bit better than heroes and Dark Knights, so they just do it to train. In fact, I feel like of the 3 Explorer warriors, they're the most out of place. Paladins, they're meant to be the defense-oriented class of the 3. They have fantastic defensive abilities to the point where if you die on a Pali, you're not playing the class correctly. And they have a good chunk of utilities such as combat orders, resurrection skill, standard fare for the Holy Knight archetype. In a traditional MMO, these guys would be the tanks. They draw the aggro for the party and let the DPSers do their stuff. But MapleStory isn't a traditional MMO, it's a 2D side-scrolling game that has no aggro, just a boss using random skills. So there's really no need for a tank. Sad but funny that Pali is the unacknowledged middle child of the Explorer warriors, being right in the middle between Hero and Dark Knight, and having a niche that doesn't really belong in this game. I give props to anyone who plays Pali though, their aesthetic does look lovely and they have interesting skills, just a shame no one really plays them to a high degree. Dark Knights, one of MapleStory's most popular class, and for good reason. I consider Dark Knights to be the best class in the mid-game. Just for context, early game, I consider early game to be 0 to 25k stat, or, around there. Mid-game is 25 to 45 and the end game is 45-50 plus. But yeah, Dark Knights have one of, if not the strongest mid-games of any class. A mix of brawn and bulk from its 2 sister classes, Dark Knights are terribly well balanced. Not too weak, but not too strong. I think they have kind of a similar problem to Hero in that they're pretty linear of a class and kind of boring to play, but they're really consistent at what they do. Problem is that they fall off heavily in the late game simply due to just being an infinitely inferior version to heroes if we talked about just purely damage and lines, but usually whenever I think of a solid warrior class to play that can satisfy almost any player, it's Dark Knight. Easy to understand, very beginner friendly, very unfunded player friendly, respectable damage, hard to kill, and for players who are looking just to reach average to above average level of play, perfect class. Moving on to the next warrior, I think comes Dawn Warrior if we're sticking to the chronological order. Out of all of the warriors in the game, I think Dawn Warrior has the coolest aesthetic, being a class that revolves around the sun and moon, having some of the flashiest abilities in the game. They're heavily overlooked by the community since that's kind of a stigma all Cygnus Knights share, like why play Wind Archer when you can play Bowmaster, why play Nightwalker where you can play Night Lord, why play Thunderbreaker where you can play Buccaneer, and yes, I do agree that initially Cygnus Knights were pretty much reskins of Explorers, but I actually wager that Dawn Warrior is a completely unique class from the 3 Explorer warriors, not to mention they've been in the top 10 to 15 in the DPS chart for a long time. In fact, if I wasn't playing Demon Slayer, I would say I'd play Dawn Warrior as my second choice. It was the first level 200 I got as a non-main, and for good reason too. Overall though, from their kit, Dawn Warriors, they're just a traditional warrior. They're bulky, they're strong defense, they have equally strong damage output, Switching between their two stances is a really cool mechanic, and their skills are just really pretty. No real weakness to speak of in my opinion, they're just not everyone's first choice of a class. I do believe that part of their lack of appeal comes from the fact that their kit is server-side, so if you have bad connection, your DPS might suffer a great deal. Other than that though, pretty strong class. Aaron comes next, incredible boss killer with some of the highest damage outputs in the entire game, focusing around an attack combo building system that increases with each attack until they go into like an overdrive mode. As implied in their kit, they get stronger the longer they are in combat, having awesome single target damage and mobbing to boot. They share a similar likeness to heroes in that regard, being able to hit very high numbers at the cost of just less lines. Of course, they don't hit as hard as heroes do, but they have way better mobbing and survivability to compensate. The biggest weakness I think Aarons have is that they need to always keep attacking, since the moment you stop and lose your combo count, you have to build it up all over again. Not a challenge, mind you, but inconvenient nonetheless. They're a very button-mashy class, so it can become rather tiresome to play for a long period of time, but yet another powerful warrior in its own right, with a unique playstyle, once again though unfortunately not every player's first choice. Before we continue on, I want to bring to attention what you guys are probably noticing by now, since there are so many warrior classes in the game, and even though Nexon does a great job with giving them all a unique image and identity, the sheer quantity of them makes it difficult for one class to really stand out over another, by nature of there just being too many warriors to begin with. Warriors as a class type are like Nexon's little baby, since most of the time a good 50% of the top 20 classes in the DPS charts are all warriors. But anyway, yeah, just want to give you guys a heads up that the reason why I keep saying not every player's first choice is not because the warriors are bad, they're all very amazing, but it's like computer science major. You think of a computer science major being a very good, profitable, and safe major to go into, but there are just too many in the world. They're replaceable, as I guess kind of as cynical as it sounds, that's usually how it goes for warriors in Maple. After Aaron, I believe came... Actually, wait, who the hell came next? Let's see, Aaron, Evan... Dual Blade... Resistance... Cannoneer... Demon Slayer, there we go, okay. So, Demon Slayer. As you know, by now there are two types of demons, Demon Slayer and Demon Avenger. Demon Slayer comes as another traditional yet unconventional warrior. They have a really cool playstyle centering around Demon Force, which is their resource bar required for some skills to be activated, and it restores just by damaging enemies and or killing them. They're the first warrior class to be introduced with a uniquely new mobility mechanic in that they can glide around the map with their wings, which is pretty cool, I gotta admit. Flashy skills all with their own unique purpose and absurdly high damage ratios. They're super good for unfunded players as a result. Demon Slayers come with a slew of passives that boost their offense and defense, even giving them things like lifesteal, buffs and debuffs, most of their attacks do partial true damage, and even attack cancel ignore, which I think is very underrated for early game. The main weakness I think Demon Slayer has is that their uptime can be disrupted if you have bad resource management, since you don't get to spam all of your abilities the way classes with MP can. You have a very limited amount of Demon Force, easy to replenish, but you can't just like spam a single attack over and over again. I'm in a Demon Slayer and I can attest to how strong and cool they are as a class. Very edgy thematic too, if you're into that. Mikhail comes next, although I personally like to call it Mikhail as it's called in KMS. I really don't understand the point of this class. It was supposed to be like a chosen one kind of story, but the class is almost identical to Dawn Warriors in every way. After the reworks and job buffs received, Mikhail's finally became their own unique class. Or rather, I think Dawn Warriors just got new skills and Mikhail kept the old ones, I guess. Anyway. Think of Mikhail's as paladins with a slightly more offensive kit, so like the bastard child of hero and paladin. There we go. Most of Mikhail's appeal comes from Royal Guard, potentially one of the most broken abilities in the game, as it's literally an on-demand party-wide invincibility spell. Apart from that, they come with a lot of boosting passives to buff up their damage, final damage, crit rate, attack speed and stuff. I honestly never gave Mikhail a try. I never saw their fit job skills until now either, so I can't really say much about it. What I do know is that they're a very mid-level class, not bad by any means. People did like to meme on Mikhail for being a terrible class, but I think they were memeing on Mikhail back in like 2012 when it first came out. I don't know, maybe I should play for it myself and give it a chance. I never paid much attention to them. Kaiser comes next, and oh my god, this class. This class was such a popular choice because everyone liked the Dragon Warrior trope you see in a ton of shows. Kaiser's had the reputation of being the most powerful warrior in the game for like 2 to 3 years until they got hit with a minor rework, which may as well have been a giant nerf, taking them from top 10 to basically bottom 10. Objectively speaking, I would say they're one of the worst warriors to play right now. Still a very fun class, I think, from a playstyle perspective and reliably consistent, but many of their abilities are outdated and kind of janky. They don't have too many good buffs or attacks, and they suffer from having a lot of dead skills, even in 4th job. Half of their skills you almost never use. I'm trying to think of any redeeming qualities Kaisers have, and it's kind of hard to say. 5th job helped them survive obscurity, but like every class got 5th job. I'd say the only thing Kaisers have that make them much better than any other warrior is that they're the only warrior in the game that can teleport in final form. Otherwise, really underwhelming right now, although I wouldn't say they're as bad as Paladin since they can actually do damage if played correctly, but yeah, glory days are long gone. In GMS and JMS exclusively came Hayatou, which is your traditional samurai katana-wielding swordsman. I'm actually surprised they took this long to make a samurai class given how popular they are in MMOs and whatnot. Anyway, Hayatou, very middle ground warrior, just like Dark Knight. Similar to Dawn Warriors, they have a stance-changing ability that alters the rest of their playstyle. From what I remember, one is used for mobbing and the other for bossing. They're a really weird class. I haven't played them all too much. I mean, I got one to level 200, but never took him past that. One thing I know Hayatous are really good for is their cross-country mobility and mobbing. In other words, unlike most other classes, Hayatou prefers to train in larger maps where they can dash around and clean house. They're a very fast attack speed warrior and they have some of the best mobility in the game with so many of their skills being dashes or blinks. Really following the theme of swift strikes, you think of a conventional samurai, they care more about being fast than hitting hard. I do know from asking a few Hayatou friends of mine that they're not really that great when it comes to DPS against single target late game because they don't do that many lines compared to other fellow warriors like Demon Slayer and Hero, but they're really awesome early and mid game, which means you can get a lot out of them. Overall though, a fun class from what I've heard with a challenging playstyle that gives them longevity to main. Most Hayatou mains I talk to, they really enjoy it. Shortly after Hayatou we have Demon Avenger, another really underwhelming warrior. I could be boring and say they're just infinitely inferior to Demon Slayers, but I'll give a brief explanation why. Demon Slayers use Demon Force for the means of attacks, while Demon Avengers use their own max HP as a resource. Thematically speaking, they're meant to be the more offensive of the two, and to an extent that's true. But after buffs, power creep, hyper skills, and fit job and whatnot, they started to really fall behind. Like Kaiser's, Demon Avengers were top dogs for a couple of years, but then fit job came out and then, yeah, Demon Slayers, they got obsolete really quickly. DAs, they also got a lot of dead skills, abilities you would never use anymore, even in 4th job and 3rd job, and they had some really bad luck with fit job skills. The main problem with DAs is that because they consume their own HP to deal damage, you can accidentally die really easily if you don't pay attention. And keeping a high damage uptime without losing all of your HP is almost impossible to do. They aren't totally bad though. Demon Avengers are the most beginner-friendly warrior class because they don't need potions at all. Their kit is fully self-sustaining, and because they scale from max HP, they get the most benefit from things like Star Force and HP stats early on, making them the strongest early game class in all of MapleStory. However, by choosing to main a Demon Avenger, you're essentially resigning yourself to playing only early to mid game. They suck late game, being even harder to fund into the late game than Xenons just because there's not many ways to upgrade your HP after a certain point. Overall, one of the weaker warriors, not useless, but definitely below average. I think next is Zero. I really don't know what to say about Zero. I've never played them. I've watched them. I know a couple friends of mine who are late game Zeros. I do know they're the worst warrior in terms of single target DPS, but they're not meant to be single target. They're incredible large map mobbers just like Hayatou, and have some of the best survivability, mobility, and utility of any warrior in the game. Like, for example, they get a freaking 15-second invincibility frame. They get self-resurrection, bind, enemy debuff, attack speed buff, they got everything. Their combos are really cool and flashy, and they're just a very well-rounded self-sustaining class. I never really see a Zero having problems getting by. I wish I knew more about them, but I just don't, so I can't draw a good conclusion. They're like the first actual legitimate combo class to come out that actually involved chaining abilities together for maximum damage uptime. Then came the likes of Cadena, Blaster, Arc, Ilium, Pathfinder, and so on. But yeah, sorry guys, I really can't think of something with Zero. They're known as the weakest warrior in the game offensive-wise, but I don't want to plant that notion in your guys' head because Zeros are anything but weak. I think I'll just skip this class for now though, not enough information. Blasters on the other hand, oh ho 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 ho, these mother truckers, I already talked about them in my strongest class of each type. Strongest class in the game, period, by leaps and frickin' bounds. If you care only about damage, well, actually playstyle is good too. While I think heroes do the most damage in a short frame window, blasters have the most consistent uptime of any class in the game. Insane attack speed and damage output to boot, crazy mobility, very bulky, at least like compared to other attack speed based classes like thieves and archers. Crazy combo potential, strong mobbing. The only thing they lack is utility, but you don't need utility when you're as strong as blasters are. Hands down, best class in the game if you maximize their combo potential. Only major drawback to this class is that it's the most physically demanding to play. I say physically in that they're the most input heavy class in the game. You're gonna break your fingers playing this class, which is why very few want to play it. The strongest class in the game, but the hardest class to play. They're the least beginner friendly warrior in the game and probably for the rest of MapleStory's history. Okay, I think I covered every warrior class, so we'll end it off here. Why Nexon made so many warriors, I'll never know, but whatever. And no, I'm not reviewing Pink Bean. That class is a meme. If I see you guys going you miss Pink Bean in the comments section, there's gonna be hell to pay, mark my words. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said before, this is not a tier list video. I know when I was reviewing the classes I talked about them being top tier, mid tier, best class, worst class, etc. But that's just in terms of their current standing. All in all, in the end, you want to focus on what class you like to play. I still know a ton of friends who play all the low tier warrior classes just because they're fun to play. Conversely, there are very few Blaster mains I know, if any, despite Blaster being the best warrior to play. It's just not for everyone. Thanks guys for watching. I'll make sure to get the Archer, Mage, and Pirate reviews out soon. Sorry for taking so long to make this video. Once again, thank you to all my patrons for supporting me as well. I'd like to give a shout out to them. If you enjoyed, a rating would be much appreciated, and leave your thoughts in the comment section below if you main any of these classes and want to voice your praises and or criticisms about them, since I'm sure you guys know the class more thoroughly than I do. Just keep it civil. I'm not trying to start a war, you know. I'll see you guys again soon in the next video. Take care.